Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Kimberly Blackrincan. I'm the director here at the Ignite Hub. I'm here with the Hub team. We have Anthony Fiora and Eduardo Novoa that you probably saw in the hallway to greet you. Welcome. This is our Future of Tech Lunch and Learn series. This is our last one for the semester. It's hard to believe. And we have a great topic. We have the future of technology and education, how AI and data will transform learning, with a special guest, Luis Montes, who is a great colleague, and we're so glad that he's here to talk about this. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Verizon, for this partnership. We have lunch and for our fireside chat dinner. We have a meal together that's so important in building community, and that's what's important here at the Ignite Hub, is that we're building a community that has information, and you're also networking and meeting other people in the community to assist each other. So welcome, and I am going to introduce Luis here. Just going to pull up his very comprehensive bio. Or not. Okay. Anthony, you want to help me out? I had it up. It disappeared. Please get comfortable. Thank you so much. Okay, so with us today, we have Luis Montes, who is a tech enthusiast with a passion for education. He received his master's in instructional technology from Towson, and he has worked at several large tech firms such as Microsoft and Redfin. Luis is currently the CEO of HomeLearn. So let's welcome Luis.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good. All right. Thank you so much for coming here today to have this very engaging, dynamic presentation discussion about the future of technology and learning. So a little bit more about me before we kind of dive into this. I actually started my journey in Montgomery College. So I started out as a student here. I got my college credits and I went ahead and transferred out to Towson University. Initially got my bachelor's in political science, then decided to move into instructional technology because I had a passion for education and technology. So why not mesh both together? I have worked at companies like Redfin, and I'm still in contact with the CEO because I have a couple ideas for some things coming around. And I'm very interested in seeing how he's implementing AI into his company. If you're not familiar with Redfin, it is a real estate search engine, Zillow's counterpart. If you're not familiar, check it out. It's a really cool engine. I've worked at Microsoft. I'm currently the LMS director at Frederick Health. So I run their learning management system. I like to wear many hats, and I'm currently the CEO of a startup called HomeLearn. And this kind of meshed my experience throughout my whole career in life. I'm a licensed real estate broker as well. And I decided to try to go ahead and make a company that could have an impact on a lot of people in this society. And I thought, what is something that could really be rewarding? I thought homeownership. A lot of times, homeownership and education is kind of gatekept between industry insiders. All the secrets, the tips, they're stuck in there. So I thought to myself, what if I could try to bring education to the masses and make it accessible and equitable? English, Spanish, have start to finish everything you would need for your home ownership journey and create a really comprehensive curriculum for that. So I'm really excited. We just closed funding right now, first round. And you can go to homelearnnow.com if you want to learn more about that. But so with that, let's go ahead and start this presentation. So for our agenda, we're going to go why technology in education is at an inflection point, key AI technologies that are reshaping learning, data and learning analytics, opportunities, risks. We're going to go over as well some of the limitations in AI, because right now there is a very large investment frenzy And I want to get a show of hands. How many people here have used AI in any capacity? All right. Any particular favorites that we have? ChatGPT, Gemini, ChatGPT. Okay, got you. I mean, they were first really to the market to influence the people, and a lot of people still stay with them, but there's a lot of competitors that are coming around, and they're very comprehensive in what they offer as well. But we're going to go over some of the limitations of that as well and kind of what it means for the future of education. Next slide. So the moment we're in, so the AI in education market is projected to grow from 7.6 billion to over 110 billion by 2034. Estimates keep changing and growing all the time. And as we get more investment, that can change. And there's a rapid adoption of generative AI, chatbots, co-pilots, content tools by students and teachers. And what we're seeing is that right now there is a dynamic where educators are thinking, how can we blend AI into the classroom while still yielding that human touch, that human interaction that prepares our students and kids of the future for how to be productive adults. And we've been seeing the moment that we're in shaped by the post-pandemic learning loss. There were a lot of teachers that retired, and we still have teaching shortages in a lot of places for high-quality instructors. And institutions right now are under pressure to improve outcomes, equity, and efficiency. And that is something that we're going to see change very fast in the coming years. How are we going to effectively implement AI tools into classrooms in elementary, start as early as elementary, middle, high school, college, corporations, right? To an extent, we're implementing AI at the hospital as we speak. We're using language learning models to try to improve research in data. And we're trying to see if we can get breakthroughs from that in medicine and improve health outcomes for the patients. So that's something that we're doing right now. But at the end of the day, that is being used as a complementary tool to our healthcare professionals. And I want to speak on the overarching topic of, will AI replace humans? Will we still need education? Is that something that's going to still be necessary in the future? I'm going to give my best professional informed guess based off my experience and my contacts currently that I am talking with many industry leaders and seeing where they're headed with this. So next slide. So what can AI do in learning today? We have personalized tutoring. There was a school that actually had AI instructors for a personalized educational curriculum. So for example, if you wanted to learn the theory of relativity, you could learn it from Albert Einstein, right? They have it personalized where they can have more one-on-one time and interaction. So we're seeing some of that. We're seeing on-demand explanations. So if you're one teacher and you're in a classroom of 30 students, it's going to take a while to go ahead and get every student what they need, right? And we have used technology in the past to narrow those gaps. Google Classroom has been around for a while already. And the way that our tool set is expanding is coming in a very nice and efficient way because of AI. And I'm not an AI alarmist. I don't think that AI is going to replace teachers or anything like that. I think it's going to be used in a complementary way. And we're seeing it in content generation from quizzes, lesson plans, rubrics, examples, and differentiated materials. And a good example that I'd like to go ahead and put out here is that a lot of the content that AI is trained on is content that's already been generated from humans for over a long period of time. And it can lead to new and fascinating discoveries, of course. But at the end of the day, it needs context, it needs data, it needs training. And raise your hand, have you heard of a data center coming near your community? Yeah. All right, data centers coming to a community near you. That's uh that's what we're seeing a lot in the news. Um, and there are implications of that. There could be higher electricity costs associated with that, but there's also positives that could be associated with that. Higher revenue for your local institution, local counties. So that is something to keep an eye out as well. And what we're seeing is accessibility. So for the first time, really, we can get on demand knowledge for anything that we want. We had that before with a much, much smaller extent, Google. How many people here remember life before Google? All right. So, there was a time when you would have to pick up a lot of books and try to find out what it is that makes this world tick in all sorts of different categories. And what we're seeing now is, in a much grander extent, you have at your fingertips the ability to ask and receive what you want on demand. And that's something that's really important for education long term, um, because jobs are always going to evolve. Dot-com boom, saw some hands. I'm sure a lot of people here lived through the dot-com boom. So when that happened, there was a similar feeling. My mom would tell me about that. She would say, "Oh, it's going to replace everything. It's over." And I think something different happened. We had a very positive evolution in education and how we interact with technology, and a lot of people adapted. And I think that's where we're headed with AI. I think that it's going to have a positive impact as a complementary tool, not just for students, but for teachers, for content, um, and efficiency. There are some things that take a lot of time. It can take a lot of time to do a very long 25-page comprehensive research report on a topic. If you train the models correctly enough, you can get that same report done very quickly, summarized, and put out into a very comprehensive report. So automation, there will be some level of automation in learning, and this is going to take place in a possibility of different ways. So you could have certain functions that teachers use currently that can be automated. You can have your own personal assistant to go through all of your context, all of your quizzes, all of your rubrics, all of your assignments to make sure that it's properly and structurally sound. Now, that will need to be validated correctly from an institutional standpoint. What does that mean? There needs to be proper regulation with AI as well. And eventually, there will be a comprehensive push for that framework regulation. In Europe, we're already seeing framework regulations that are coming out. And in the United States, eventually, we will have comprehensive frameworks for that as well. And then going off into the different topic right now, we're going to also have practical applications for AI as well. This means coding. How many people have heard of vibe coding? No? Okay. So in the programming sphere and in the world right now, what we're seeing is that vibe coding has picked up a lot in popularity. What vibe coding is it's a way where instead of you having to learn the language, let's say Python, C++, Java, you can just give the human input into the AI, meaning your natural language text, and it can provide you with the code that you would need to create and scale your program. We're in the early beginnings of vibe coding. I actually used it in a learning integration for the hospital, and I was able to vibe code my own custom game. And I didn't need my own experience with that programming language. I just put out the prompts as detailed and accurately as I could until it gave me the right output. And what that did is it was actually able to embed the code into my training that I then put in our learning management system that then went out to people. And they found it very engaging and it was nice. I didn't actually need to know coding for that. And the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen, he put it in a very good way where human language is essentially what you're going to need to produce the desirable outputs in the future. You still will need, on an expert level, to be able to validate and confirm that that code is correct. Because there are times where tools will go down. There will be a time, I mean, AI does run on data centers. And if something goes offline, I don't know how many people here have seen recently, we've had a couple outages in AWS, Azure. We've had a lot of cloud infrastructure go down, right? So if, God forbid, something like that happens on a grander scale, we still need people who understand how to do this, right? But what it does is it gives accessibility to get the outputs that you need and that you want. And that's what's so exciting about AI coming in the education field. Next slide. So ITS are AI-driven intelligent tutoring systems. And it's something that provides learners and students with one-on-one support, one-on-one tutoring. And this is something that's so transformational about AI, is the fact that you're able to learn whatever you want. If you want to learn another language, you have the ability to actually interface with the AI. And if you have, well, subscription pending, right? You need a you need a Plus subscription and some other things, but you're able to have conversations. My father-in-law is Persian. I'm half Persian myself, and he was speaking Farsi. I gave him my chat GBT and I said, hey, speak to this AI. He had a full conversation back and forth. He couldn't believe it. His mind was blown, right? But that is something that's so cool as well. You can have these personal interactions where you can learn different categories of what you want. And whether it's you just learned something recently and you want to confirm your knowledge, you can go ahead and try to do that with your AI. So it's pretty exciting. And there are schools that are implementing some early versions of that right now. How that's going to emerge in a larger scale is yet to be seen. Again, there's going to be frameworks, and every local county and area is different in how they will go ahead and assess that. But it's starting now. Systemic reviews show ITS generally improves test scores and learning efficiency. So if you're a student and you're able to have an independent tutor outside of your class, because your teacher can't go home with you, right? But with AI, you do have someone or something that can interface with you and go over these complex topics. You can test your knowledge, and that's very important. Now, there are limitations. I do want to speak about that. So the effects vary by context, right? AI is only as good, and I will say this again, AI is only as good as the models and data it is trained on. So if you have bad training on your models, then you might have a much higher rate of what we call hallucinations. How many people here have heard of hallucinations in AI? So, think about it like when a human has, they went out to the bar at nighttime and they come next morning and they're expected to go to work and they're trying to be as sane as possible. They might not be at their top performance, at their top level. AI, in essence, has hallucinations that can occur. And this is even irrespective of the complete quality of the training. It can just happen. It's an inherent limitation of AI. You always have to double check your information with AI. That is always going to be the case. We can't 100% put faith in this. We still need to be able to do our own validation and method of research. And that's something in schools, institutions, and corporate That's going to be very important. We're putting our AI framework at the hospital, at Frederick Health. We're already drafting that. And part of that is going to include, we have to make sure what information that this is giving out can be validated by a human, can be absolutely to the highest extent made sure that this is correct information. Because what happens if AI puts out complex information in a healthcare setting and it turns out it was wrong? So that's something that we're going to really have to pay attention to, making sure that we double check. However, there is the context as well that AI is able to improve efficiencies and outcomes. There have been some studies that in healthcare settings, they outdo a doctor by a delta of around 60% in actual what was correct in their assessment of a patient. So many applications, as we said. And we can go next slide. So generative AI and large language models. So chat-based tutors can deliver conversational support, like we discussed. They can match or exceed traditional active learning for short-term games. And they can mimic expert reasonings to help with design. So if I'm a teacher or if I'm someone that wants to teach students, I can help and get assistance from AI in determining my framework. How am I going to go ahead and structure this class? You can bounce ideas back and forth. I talk with some people who are CEOs of very large companies, and you'd be surprised. They are asking AI back and forth, what is the next best product idea we should have for our product line? And the information they're getting might not give them the exact answer they're looking for, but it sparks a trail of ideas that can ignite human curiosity, ignite the best of our creativity as humans. And at the end of the day, humans aren't going anywhere. This isn't going to be a Terminator style thing where AI is going to take over, because at the end of the day, if we have no jobs, right? Let's say hypothetically AI was able to do that, there would be a limit to consumer spending. And if you don't have consumer spending, you don't really have a functioning economy. And what we're seeing is, given the limitations of AI, some CEOs are thinking that there are no limits. And they're just doing it to get a lot of money, right? Profit corporations. But at the end of the day, there are inherent limitations to this. There are. Just like any technology, right? There are some limits, but there is a lot of positivity that can come from this. So that's where we're at with AI right now. And then the last point I would want to say is sometimes students can overtrust AI. It is not, like I said, 100% accurate. You do need to double check your work. So the difference in activities that's going to have to be created and put together for students is going to be top of mind for a lot of instructors. The way that we assess cognitive ability, that we assess student outcomes, success, and even how students learn. Every student learns differently, right? So we're still going to have to tailor to different students and individual needs. That's going to need to be top of mind. So I just wanted to keep that in mind. Next slide. So AI can help scale tutoring by supporting human tutors with lesson planning and real-time hints. It is not a full-time replacement for a tutor, because at the end of the day, as humans, we do need that interaction in some level where we can feel understood, where we can feel that if we're sharing something to another human, they're able to really understand us, not just on this level, but an emotional level as well. Mentoring, right? That's a very large part of education. When anytime I have taught somewhere or interacted or tried to teach a subject, I didn't want to just impart the knowledge. I also wanted to be an active mentor for the people. If they needed something, I can be there. I can help them. And that human level connection is never going to disappear. So that's something that I firmly believe. And hybrid models is what I think is going to be, in my prediction, future. I think we're going to have hybrid models that blend human relationship with AI. That's truly where I think this is going. Similar to the technology that we have right now, we have always used tools. I mean, like I said, a lot of people didn't use Google because it wasn't around. Then it came, and a lot of people started using Google, right? Now we have Google AI, right? And how many people have typed something into Google lately and they've seen an AI version of it? Have you found that helpful? Yeah, it's immensely helpful, right? It adds more context. You're still using a tool and it's providing you with more information and more context. So that's an evolution in a sense. And I think that's where we're all headed, where we're going to be blending AI with human interaction. Next slide. So learning analytics uses data from LMSs, assessments, and tools to understand how students learn. How many people here know what an LMS is? Raise of hands. All right, cool. So like I said, I run the learning management system at the hospital. It's about 4,500 people in that hospital. We need a lot of reporting. We need a lot of analytics. We need a lot of data, right? And what I have found is that we've gotten offers from certain vendors and institutions to have a form of agentic AI. How many people here have heard of agentic AI? Right? So in a very simple form, it's a type of AI that has a purpose to try to do specific tasks, right? So you can think of like a customer service representative, or you can think of, you know, a very light level data analyst, right? So we've gotten offers and we've gotten things for the hospital for that. And what we're finding, and what many CEOs are figuring out right now, is that agentic AI is just not ready for the big time. There are inherent limitations because those complex tasks take a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of advanced reasoning ability that most companies don't have the ability to fund, quite frankly. It's very expensive to fund data centers. It's very expensive to fund AI, which is run on a lot of GPUs. How many people here know about NVIDIA? If you don't know about NVIDIA, research NVIDIA. I had their first graphics card line when they first came out. And I've been a loyal customer to them for a long time. But they have essentially powered the AI revolution. Everything has basically stemmed from their high-powered graphics processors. So if you haven't heard about them, go ahead and research. A lot of these centers have thousands and thousands of their graphics cards linked together, powering a lot of this stuff. So it's not like AI just comes from nowhere and it's unlimited energy, and it's always going to be able to run without any amount of cost. There is always a cost. So we have to keep that in mind. AI-powered dashboards, they can help with predictive analytics. They can predict risks of failure. They can highlight disengagement and suggest interventions. So we can think of AI, again, on a corporate level, institutional level, as a very good tool that we can use to assess many different types of data, many different types of risks, and what could happen for a company institution in the future. Has anyone had in their institution any AI implementation discussions, out of curiosity? Not yet. Okay. And that's because we're still very early, right? We're very early in this process, and those discussions will be coming. They will be coming. So it's helpful to know the context of how AI can help in your institutional or corporate setting, obviously, without replacing a job. There will be jobs that will be, and this is truth, will be replaced. That's always been through any technological revolution. There's been old jobs taken out, new jobs coming in. So that is something we do have to keep an eye out, but it's not going to be all doom and gloom. There's going to be new sectors, new jobs, and a lot of excitement. So recent reviews show that analytics often target assessment and performance prediction more than deeper learning. So the key in how many people have heard of predictive news like Kalshi? Um, so, so predictive analytics and data is very large right now. So CNN just got a contract with Kalshi, and they're a predictive technology company that actually tries to bet, like we as people can bet on what will happen in life in the news. Will we go to war with XXX? Will we do this? Will we do that? You can bet on it. You can bet on the news. That is something that is very wild to think about, but it's a type of trend that we're seeing with predictive analytics. That's a very key word going into the future because everyone right now is trying to guess what is going to happen. What is going to happen in this AI race, in this AI age, and how is it going to affect people? And what we're seeing is companies are paying big money to try to get that correctly. Next slide. So currently we have systems, as we've seen, that are multimodal, and we have systems that can, with our current AI, they can assess multiple things in real time. So we can have video, we can have audio, we can have many things blended into one. And they can understand all of those things in context at once. Now, we're not that good right now at blending everything. If anyone's tried to make an advanced document with AI or try to make advanced graphics like images, it comes out not too good. And you really have to keep bugging it to get you where you want to go. So we're in early infancy there, but we are getting to the point where maybe in a couple years that will change. Maybe we're able to make extensive, all-in-one, reports with graphics embedded, with everything done with just a couple clicks and enough context, right? So that is something that they're trying to train to get better. Right now, it's very good for text. AI is very, very good for text. No doubt about that. But in terms of video and other things, we're getting in there. How many people have heard of Sora? All right, cool. Anyone try it? What's your experience been with it, if you'd mind sharing? Anyone who raised your hand? There you go. That's what the overall feedback has been. Not there yet, right? But there will come a point in time where eventually it might be able to get to a point where we're very happy with the video generation and everything that happens. So that is something to keep an eye out as well. Next slide. So impact on teachers' roles. AI is shifting teachers from primary content deliverers to learning designers and mentors. Co-planning. AI suggests your objectives, your activities, and differentiation ideas, and teachers curate that and they refine it. That is where we are looking at for the future. As an educator, as an instructor, I firmly believe that's what we're going to have to do. We can have that overall framework, but we have to curate and refine those ideas as instructors because we're delivering it. I'm speaking with you guys right now. I'm not AI, right? At least as far as I know. Formative assessment support. AI summarizes student work, highlights misconceptions, and drafts feedback. You can even get analytics from your students' performance, right? You can get trends. You can get predictive analytics for how your students might perform based off certain amount of factors that you put into the models. Now, there are risks. Again, workload can increase if tools are fragmented or poorly integrated into workflows. And that's where a key thing is going to come about, integration. How well are we integrating AI into our current systems? Are we choosing a solid model that could really bolster our institution? Or are we just choosing some random vendor and they just slap together a AI with a couple GPUs and it's not trained on good data? That's going to be something that every institution is going to have to make sure they're implementing correctly. When done correctly, this can be transformative. When done incorrectly, it can be a negative on the company or institution. So that's something to really keep in mind. Next slide. Student experience and well-being. So surveys show many students feel AI helps them learn faster, but can feel less connected to their teachers. So in a sense, as humans, as we grow and evolve, we still need human connection, right? I remember many of my teachers. How many people here, show of hands, remember some of their teachers from their time in school? I still visit one of mine. He was a communications professor at Montgomery College. I love him. Brian McNeilis, if you haven't heard of him, he's a great guy. Taught communications, made me want to come to class at 8 a.m. I was alert, ready, and excited. He had the most fascinating experience. And the first thing he told me is he went to clown school. And I said, wow, that's interesting. And he met his wife there. And he such a just, I didn't even know there was a school. And he was telling me all of the things that entailed. And it fascinated me. I was like, this guy is so interesting. So that human connection is always going to be important. Now, over-reliance on AI for assignments can weaken critical thinking and help seeking from humans. We don't want to over-rely on it for our students, because what we will find is that if you over-rely on it, the student's ability to come up with information and critical thoughts can dwindle. We need to be able to still think critically. We still need to be able to come up with ideas and be creative and understand context, so that we cannot over-rely on it. And we need to make sure that teachers are drafting their curriculums in a way where that human aspect is not gone. And that's something to think about as well. AI tools are being increasingly used for emotional support and private conversations, especially by marginalized learners. Some people who felt like they were never reached out to, who no one really checked on them compared to other students. Favoritism, right? There always might be a favorite student, whether some people admit it or not. Attention can be delegated differently. AI can narrow that gap significantly. But it can also be a tool to make sure that all the students are getting certain amounts of attention. So if you have a classroom and you have an AI analytics tool and it's telling you this student is falling behind on their trend lines, they're going down, I recommend they get more attention. I recommend they get more individualized support. That is something that you as a teacher can then look at. If you have a student who's already always just like this on the trend line, they're very advanced and they're able to go ahead and come out with all these contexts on their own, you can still give them attention, but you need to delegate things properly. That's the key point there. And schools must balance AI use with in-person relationships, social emotional learning, and human support. Next slide. Key risks and ethical challenges. Privacy and data protection. Massive student data traces with unclear ownership and retention policies. So for example, if you're a healthcare institution and you're putting critical client data or patient data in there, that is an inherent risk. There have been cyber attacks increasing on a massive scale. And in the future, there will be increasing amount of cyber attacks because with AI, you're able to have your own AI cyber agent. And what's going to happen is you're going to need a cyber professional who also knows how to counteract those cyber AIs. And it's just going to snowball from there. So you could have cybersecurity professional managing 100 cyber agentic AIs, and you can have another person who's a hacker doing that as well. So that's how we've seen technology work. Everything scales, right? A hacker comes out with a hack, someone who knows positively, like a white hat, someone who actually knows a cyber professional can counteract that. And then they come out with a new vulnerability, right? That's how things have always been. So in this essence, it's just going to be a more complicated type of cyber warfare, because now we're not just dealing with humans, we're also dealing with AI. So for the good and the bad, they're both going to need to scale. And privacy and data protections are very important. Taylor Swift made a very important lawsuit. She sued because AI was generating her likeness and in an inappropriate way. That's an example of a protection that's going to need to be placed inside of AIs. You shouldn't be able to inherently use someone's likeness in a negative manner and pretend that they did something they didn't. Because at that point, when you go to court, they'll say, I have a video of you robbing a store. Like, is that video real? We have to re-examine how we use evidence, right? We have to make sure that it wasn't generated by AI. And those are legal challenges that are coming and going, and we're seeing how that's going to come about. And then bias and fairness. We want to make sure that models trained on skew data can reinforce stereotypes and inequities. That's a risk. We want to make sure that doesn't happen, right? So when you train a model, sometimes there is a bias to a certain way, maybe a political persuasion. Maybe someone says, my AI believes this, so it's going to go ahead and answer these responses to people and say, well, my party is the best, blah, 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 by a million, percentage. So it's going to influence people, right? And that's something that we need to make sure is properly regulated. These things should be factual to a highest extent. They should be trained on high quality data, and they should not be biased to the point where one person's viewpoint skews what everyone else learns, right? We have had that in human context before, of course. There are teachers that will say, well, I believe this, so my students should believe this too, right? Not good teaching practice. You should keep a lot of stuff out of that classroom, but with AI, we have to really make sure it has those guardrails. And we're not getting that comprehensive guardrail and framework yet, but it is in the works and coming eventually. So safety and misuse. How many people here have heard of deepfakes? They're increasing in popularity, right? We're seeing deepfakes everywhere. I don't know if someone saw there's a AI actress that just got famous and picked up from a talent agency, actually. People in Hollywood were very stunned, but it's looks like a real person. If you look up this AI actress, name's not coming to mind, but looks real and performed in short videos, short movies. And the question becomes, okay, the company that made that AI actress can profit from it. In the same way where if you make an animation, right? You're making an animation, it's conveying a story, and you're getting profit. The only difference is we're really mimicking to the highest extent humans. So that's something that will come about for that. And harmful content and psychological harm. We have to make sure that AI is not harming our students or giving advice or information that could be detrimental to their development, right? And there have been lawsuits already about that, where some students were fed something that led to an unfortunate incidents. And that's something that's going to have to be at the highest cornerstone of AI development, making sure that this is done in the safest possible way. Because students, regardless how old, honestly, you can be influenced, right? If you hear something a certain way, if you're in a hard time emotionally and you see something, it comes at you, it changes you. You're like, oh wait, I didn't think about this. So we have to make sure that's there as well. Next slide. So emerging governance and policy responses. Global recommendations, UNESCO urges human rights, transparency, and accountability in AI. National and regional regulations are tightening around children's data, algorithmic transparency, and safety. Universities and school systems are publishing their own AI use policies and academic integrity guidelines. And what we're seeing again is that as institutions are being more aware of the different tool sets of AI, that there must be policies and procedures for how to properly implement it. That's going to have to be the case. If your institution does not have that, I recommend they look at that. Because it's here and it's coming fast. Next slide. Principles for human-centered AI in education. So I don't know if people have heard of human-centered AI. So you want to augment, not replace AI should strengthen, not weaken, human relationships and professional judgment. Equity first design, you should prioritize access, inclusivity, and support for underserved learners. Even the way AI is trained, you want to make sure it's trained in an equitable and fair way. When it gives you certain information or data, it could speak differently based off your background if you gave it that context. And that's something that you want to make sure is inherently correct in the model. You want to make AI decisions and limitations clear to the users. Again, privacy by design. You want to minimize the amount of data collection, use strong safeguards, and give users control when possible. And you want to pilot, evaluate, iterate, rather than adopting tools based on hype, right? A lot of things are being hyped. They've always been hyped. Why are things hyped? It could be because of money, right? At the end of the day, as a corporations and business, you want to maximize your profits. Anyone take a business class before? You learn pretty early on that maximizing profits is, one of the goals of a business, right? And you want to make sure that that happens. So people in general will sell and sell really well what they're offering you. But you want to make sure it's not just sounding good, the product and the actual implementation can benefit your institution in an impactful way. And that's something we really have to look out for, because right now the funding going around in Silicon Valley, people are like, oh, I have AI this. Okay, here's $50 million. And it turns out it didn't really do anything. It didn't give return on investment. It did not benefit the institution or corporation. And there's a lot of regret on the higher level. So we do have to look out for that. Next slide. Next slide. There you go. So implementation roadmap for institutions. Define your goals. What learning, equity, or efficiency outcomes are you trying to improve? Map your existing data and tools and identify gaps and integration points. Start with focused pilots. For example, AI tutoring in one subject, analytics for first-year at-risk students. Provide professional learning for staff on both technical use and pedagogy with AI. Instructors and teachers are going to need to learn how to do this as well, because there's some that understand AI to a great extent, and there's some that don't. So teachers will also have to be properly trained on how to use and integrate these tools. And with the new generation, they're wired in. They've been wired in from the start. My little cousin, he had an iPad from the beginning, right? And he's been wired into that ecosystem, social media, everything. So they're very, very technology dependent. And there's goods and bads with that, right? You want to co-design with students and educators and gather feedback continuously. So as you're making changes, as you're coming out with a potential new feature for this AI, you want to make sure that you're gathering your feedback on how it works. What are the outcomes? How did this improve the objective that you laid out? And then monitor the impact, so quantitative and qualitative, and adjust or scale based on the evidence. And next slide. So skills that students need in an AI-rich world. You need AI literacy, understanding what AI can do and understanding what it cannot do. Like I said before, there are inherent limitations, right? And to an extent, I will say there are a lot of things humans can do, right, that AI might not be able to do. And that's the fact that we have complex layers that AI does not. People talk about AGI. Has anyone heard of AGI? Hands up. All right, artificial general intelligence, right? It's the concept that they're going to scale and mimic exactly how we reason and how we have our cognitive abilities, our consciousness, what makes us what we are, right? That's a scary thought. But to the reality of it, we're nowhere near there as of right now. We have our inherent limitations, and based off the current foundational structure of how AI is created, based off the learning language model, we aren't seeing, even Sam Altman, ChatGPT CEO, OpenAI, he said, yeah, we're not there. And how many people have used ChatGPT 5 or 5.1 recently? There was a lot of blowback against that new model. Some people liked 4.0. They thought the newer model wasn't as good as the older model. And that's a backwards trend for AI, right? And they've had to adjust to that. So it's not all super upward trajectory, right? We have to be cognizant and see what happens here. Collaboration with AI using tools as partners for brainstorming, drafting, and reflecting. Ethical and civic reasoning, considering the social impacts of AI and responsible use in people's lives. Very important stuff. Next slide. So I've given a couple examples, but in a K through 12 scenario, a district deploys AI-supported math tutoring for middle school students. I myself was not a good math student. I didn't enjoy it too much. Students receive their personalized practice and explanations after school and during intervention blocks. Teachers get dashboards highlighting misconceptions and suggested small group activities. You get early results, improved homework completion, higher quiz scores, and more targeted in-class instruction. Enablers for this are teacher training, clear communication with families, and strong data privacy agreements. So when you're implementing, again, you want to make sure you're getting that continuous feedback and that it's complementary and that your teacher is also well-trained and aware of what to do. Next slide. University integrates AI writing and coding assistance into first-year courses. Like I said, we've seen vibe coding, but in terms of AI actually being able to teach programming, it can be helpful for an instructor to do that. The policies will emphasize transparency. Students must disclose when and how AI tools were used. That's important. As a student, I have to say, hey, I did use AI. This is how it was used. And that's a learning, that's an effective learning outcome, right? I was able to critically think what needed to be done. I used AI to be able to come up with this, and this was my result. Did I do it correctly? The teacher can go ahead and say, well, your overall process actually wasn't accurate. Maybe there was an inaccuracy in what you put into the AI. That's an example of the feedback loop, right? Learning analytics we talked about. Faculty will use AI to generate variants of assignments and authentic assessments that are harder to game, and improving progression rates while maintaining academic integrity and deep learning. So I want everyone to think of AI as just another method that we learn as a complementary tool. Next slide. So optimistic, right? We're optimistic about this. The future. How many people here are excited about the future? Raise of hands. Okay, I'd say most people. I still believe in, the optimism of humanity, right? AI makes high quality tutoring, feedback, and materials available to every learner. That's fundamentally amazing. We have to be cautious. Uncontrolled deployment amplifies inequities, surveillance, and dependence on systems. We also don't want to be watched 24/7 as a society, right? So that's something we have to keep in mind. So most likely, a hybrid path shaped by policy, funding, educator voice, and public expectations. So our task now is to design socio-technical systems where AI and data serve humans flourishing in education. That's where we're headed, a hybrid design and system. And that is my absolute best guess. We can check in a couple years from now and see if I was correct. All right. Questions? I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Luis. We are close to the end of our presentation, but we do want to allow just for a few, when I say few, I mean one or two questions from the audience. And then I would love to invite everybody here in person. And well, let's start with the people here in person. We're going to have lunch and Luis will be there. So you can have some conversations with him there for our, yes, and good food. For our guests online, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Any burning comments, questions? Yes.
I'm hearing that most of the data has been used already and that AI is going to start slowing down a lot because there is no more data to input into it.
So data, there will always be new data. That's the thing, right? Like if we think of data, it's essentially like when we come up with an idea or a new idea or a new thought, that becomes a new data set, right? And the large amounts of the models, right? They're always going to be trained on new knowledge that's learned. So that's going to be new data. And that can snowball into new discoveries, which then becomes new data sets that humans might come up with a varying branch. And it's like a loop, right? So there's always going to need to be new data that's put in because we have new discoveries and new, like quantum computing, right? That's coming around. It's fundamentally different in how it operates. Who knows where that's going to come in a couple years? That's for another discussion and another time, right? But point being is that there will always need to be new bulk amounts of data based off all sorts of interesting discoveries and breakthroughs that we don't even know what's going to come in the next couple of years. But yeah, that'd be my answer to that.
Hi there. So I was wondering, when it comes to the art world, let's say hypothetically you decide to vibe code in order to create a video game. If let's say you want to sell that video game off Steam and make some money when after vibe coding, what are going to be some implications to consider before making that decision?
That's a great question. So, one, you want to make sure what you're vibe coding is not like a complete ripoff of something else, because a lot of the models are trained off based off kind of what we have already existing. So you want to make sure in your prompting, in your the way that you speak to the AI, that you're making something that you won't get a legal action against. But if it's something completely proprietary that you came up with, your idea, and AI helped you code, why not? I mean, we're already seeing it to an extent. I was even talking to Anthony, colleague over here. There's a lot of YouTube channels that have lo-fi beats and they use AI to synthesize all of that, and they're profiting off it because you're getting views, and when you get views, you get monetization, right? You get payment. So to the same extent, if it's airtight enough, it's proprietary, you made it, you can sell it, right? That's how we do things as humans. We make something, we sell it. That's never going to change, right? So yeah, I would go for it. And even on Steam, I know they have their own RPG makers, right? They've always had those. So you can kind of make little RPGs within it, and they're literally called RPG Maker. And you can go ahead and make your own kind of retro style game, and then you can go ahead and put it on the Steam store too. So yeah.
I actually have a question, and we had a guest speaker last spring who was here and talking about bias in AI. So you've talked about, right, AI is not 100% accurate. You have to verify. So can you speak a little bit about bias? Like you said, what we learn or what's going to be in front of the students or the tutoring is dependent on the information that goes in there.
Yeah, it's completely correct. And different models that are created might have different levels of bias. The data that's trained on it, you want to make sure that things could be historically accurate, for example. There's been many instances of history being rewritten, right? And if history is rewritten, then we don't learn from it, right? So that is an active issue that's going to have to be looked at in every model, because depending on how you're asking these prompts and what you're getting back, I mean, depending on the context, it could be responding from the perspective of someone that the model was trained on. Like, let's say it's someone of a certain race and background, then the model will be giving you the answer based off that, not factoring in your life story, your history, your background. And the answers you get might not resonate with you or apply to you, and you're not getting that necessary feedback that you're looking for. So how they're trained and what they output is very important to look for, because we're all different. We come from different backgrounds, but I believe that that's what makes us strong, right? All of our differences we put together, and we want to make sure that the models also think that and don't discriminate too, you know?
For all the caveats, this is going to have to be looked at. Who are the people that are looking at it? And, are we, quote unquote, generating that community of people who are going to be watchdogs? Or do you think that's going to happen via legislation? What are your thoughts there?
Yep. So right now, I think what we're called in a frenzy mode, right? We're still in frenzy mode with AI. We haven't gotten off of frenzy mode. So when a new technology like this comes, the people in charge really are the suits, right? The really, really rich people, the really rich companies, right? So we don't have that regulatory framework on a large scale right now. That doesn't mean that 5 years from now we won't have that. I very much predict 5 years from now is going to be vastly different than when we're at right now. And we probably will have regulatory framework. The European Union is already doing it. So, we're always a little bit kind of lag a little bit in terms of regulation, but that is something that as a community, even local educators, it's going to be on all of us. If you want to implement something into your local institution, education professionals, for example, from Montgomery College, from different institutions, they will have to double check the veracity of AI and make sure that when it's implemented correctly and not in a way that could discriminate against students or go against the Montgomery College value system, which has always been extremely inclusive and takes people from wherever and gets them to all sorts of really cool places. And as a Montgomery College alumni, very, very proud of this institution. I think they'll do correctly by AI.
Thanks, Luis. We have one question online, and then we're going to close out with that. So hopefully you'll stay with us for lunch and you can talk to Luis. So go ahead, Anthony.
Sure. Carolina has a question online that for students who are undecided about what to pursue in college, how would you recommend they use AI in figuring out this question without getting personal/psychological and possibly leading down dangerous rabbit trails that lead to suicidal conversations, as has been covered in the news?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the CEOs of those companies have had issues already, and they have had lawsuits, and they have had corrections to how their models are giving certain outputs for what people are putting in. And the newest iteration of ChatGPT, for example, that was a leading issue for them to make sure that it's not giving negative advice that could cause people to spiral. So there are safeguards that are more in place because of those events and possibilities that have happened. In terms of making sure or using AI in a complementary way to see what you want to do, you can feed it the context, right, in conversations. You can say, this is what I enjoy in my life. This is what I'm interested in. These are my current skills. This is what I hope to learn. AI is only as good as how much context you give it, how well you talk with it, how well you conversate, and the more information it has, it can give better frameworks and ideas. But I would go ahead and, like I said before, you can use AI as a tool and then try to check in with a human to validate if that's something really that you want to do. So if it says, hey, political science might be your best career path, check in with your counselor or whoever you're looking for in your educational institution. And if they also agree that this might be something good, then I would say maybe try to pursue it. But you really have to do that research and make sure that all around that you're getting the proper information you need to succeed.
Thank you, Luis, for taking the time today to come and speak with us. All of our guest speakers here at the Ignite Hub are volunteers who donate their time and talent to us, to the college. So here's a small token of appreciation on behalf of the Ignite Hub for coming out and informing our community. It looks like we're like sold out here in the hub. So congratulations to us for really building. That's what I was reflecting on in terms of the numbers of when we first started. It was small numbers, and now we have full tables. So I'm really pleased that we're building that community and having return guests come here. So without further ado, thank you, Luis. We are going to transition to lunch. Yes, let's I'll give an applause. Oh, yeah, sorry. There's a QR code. We love your feedback. Maybe we can put that QR code in the lunchroom. If you want to transition over there, you can fill it out. Thanks for your feedback. And we will see you in the spring in February with our first fireside chat. Thank you.